Hey everybody, it's ScomletX, and welcome back to some more Magic Arena. Today I'm going to be playing another premiere draft of Phyrexia, All Will Be One. This video was recorded during the early access event, so thank you very much to Wizards of the Coast for providing me with this early access account. Without further ado, let's get into the draft. Alright, here we are. With our pack 1. We have Kethic Crucible Goliath as our rare, not really first pickable. A 4-mana 4/4 that allows you to sacrifice your other creatures to reveal cards from the top of your library to reveal a cheaper non-legendary creature and put that onto the battlefield. So you can kind of downgrade your creatures into smaller mana value stuff. Not a huge fan of it. Can be good on the sideboard for sure against pacifism style aura-based removal, but not really a great pick 1 pack 1. Our uncommons are not incredible. They're all like probably power level of a decent common. So we look to the commons here and see what we find. Flensing Raptor is probably what I'm going to take. I've found this to be incredibly impressive when my opponents play this against me in the Toxic aggro decks. A 3-mana 2/2 flyer with Toxic 1 that also sends another toxic creature into the sky with +1/+1 in flying when it enters the battlefield. So Flensing Raptor really scary in the Toxic decks. Also Batterfist, which is nice in the equipment decks. Steward is good in oil, and Augury is great in like blue-red spells. But we'll go for the Flensing Raptor to start it off, maybe move into an archetype I haven't played around with yet, something a little more poison-focused. Pack 1, pick 2, we've got a pretty decent follow-up. We actually have several of them. Nimrazer Paladin, I think, is what I'm going to take here. It's just a very good value play. 5 mana for a 4/4 with Toxic 2 that also returns a creature with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to your hand. That can, of course, pick up my Flensing Raptor. Probably what it's going to do a lot if we go black-white. Black-white is an archetype that cares about putting a bunch of poison counters on your opponent, so starting off with 2 toxic is pretty nice. The archetype really wants to end up with 3 poison on your opponent so that your corrupted cards become better. There's also Duelist of Deep Faith. If I want to stick to mono-white, that would be a great pick. 2 mana for a 2/2 that's first strike during your turn, and it has Toxic 1. Just fights very well on attacks. And then there's also Contagious Vorak, one of green's best commons. 3 mana for a 3/3 lets you dig a land at the top 4, put it into your hand, so it's a 2-for-1, and it proliferates if you want it to do that instead, which can, of course, be good in a Toxic deck. Pack 1, pick 3 now. To stay aggressive, we can take a Bladed Ambassador, a 2-mana 3/1 that can give itself indestructible one time by removing that oil counter, and if we pick up any Proliferate, it can potentially do that multiple times, so that's a pretty exciting just aggro drop for an aggressive strategy, which I think is what we'll be going for. Vanish into Eternity is fine, but it is a little bit slow in draft, being a 6-mana removal spell for creatures. It is only 3 mana for non-creatures, though, which is nice. But I think I'm going to go Ambassador over Vanish into Eternity by a little bit. I have found that this is a very bomb-heavy format. There are tons of incredibly powerful rares and mythics that need to be dealt with pretty much instantaneously, so that does make Vanish into Eternity a lot better than I thought it was going to be at first, but again, it is still 6 mana, which is a bit of a hard sell, and I think I'm going to go for Ambassador over that. Pick 4, I can pretty easily take another Flensing Raptor, just 3 mana 2/2 flying Toxic 1, very good enter the battlefield effect. We're really hoping to see some of the 2 mana toxic creatures in white and black. There is a 2-mana rat with Toxic 1 in black, and of course that 2-mana 2/2 first strike with Toxic 1 in white. We would love to have any combination of 3 or 4 toxic creatures on turn 2 to really go with this Flensing Raptor. Ideally 5 or 6, but be happy with just 3 or 4 of them. Alright, pack 1, pick 5, we do find the 2-drop Blightbelly Rat. I think this is really, really important to this deck to be able to curve out with a 2-drop toxic creature into the turn 3 Flensing Raptor, which makes me want to take this Blightbelly Rat over some other cards that I wouldn't normally. So Blightbelly Rat, very solid card here. The other cards that I would consider pretty highly are cards like Skull Bombs, because they are really flexible. You can always cycle them away for just colorless, and they give you a really nice ability that draws you a card while you do it for the 3 mana. So the white Skull Bomb, the blue Skull Bomb, both looking pretty sweet here. Skitterfang's a nice flexible card too, but I think our deck can make really good use of Blightbelly Rat, so I'm going to scoop that up, make sure we have 2 mana toxic creatures. And again, our color pair really wants as many 2 mana or less, I should have specified that, 2 mana or less toxic creatures The Crawling Chorus is a great way to guarantee that you're getting some poison counters on your opponent in the early game. If they miss playing any creatures on turn 1 or turn 2, and you're on the play, this is a very quick way to get your opponent pretty close to Corrupted to make your Corrupted spells better. So I like Crawling Chorus a good bit in this deck. Pick 6 is pretty late for Ichor Plate Golem, though. I think this is really good in any combination of green, blue, and red. All three of those colors have a lot of really good creatures that care about oil counters. That being said, we're in the 2 colors that have the least oil counter stuff, so we're probably not playing around with that. We have a Prophetic Prism here that we could take to potentially help splash in a card. Not a deck, or not a card you really want in aggressive decks, because you want all your mana to be spent getting creatures on the board in the early game, or doing something that affects the board state of creatures. So I'm not super into taking it here, but I would take it pretty highly for most decks that aren't this aggressive, just because it gives us that flexibility of being able to splash a little easier. Terramorphic Expanse a little similar, but Prism's better. But I'm going to go Skull Bomb here. I think that's the best card for the black-white toxic aggro deck, because this gives us a way to send even a Phyrexian Might into the sky to help get another poison counter on our opponent when we need it, or just get in for extra damage. We do hit for a lot of regular combat damage. We have a decent combat trick we can leverage into killing a bigger creature, the Offer Immortality. Phyrexian Mights do make this a little bit better, because of course we can attack them with a Might. They're always just going to be like, okay, block, whatever. But I still don't think it's good enough to take over the Fair Basilica here. This, of course, being a card that is always going to be better than our 24th best non-land card, because it instantaneously replaces the planes in our deck, whereas our 24th best non-land card just doesn't end up in the deck at all. So that's why I like to take this over cards that aren't like guaranteed to make the cut. Now we'll take Infectious Inquiry. It's card draw that also gives our opponent a poison counter. Pretty narrowed into the black-white toxic deck here. Best off-color card here is honestly probably just the Hunter Maze, but I've actually liked the Cultivator as well as a decent early game ramp card. A lot of good green in this pack in general, but I think I'm taking the Maze. Another Hunter's Maze versus a Gold Warden's Helm. That's definitely a playable. It's not excellent, but if I don't get enough playables, it can make the cut. Still feels unlikely I move into a different color pair, because I do really want to try out the black-white toxic deck, even if it isn't the 100% best place to be in this draft pod, so we'll see. I'll give somebody a Duress, take the Gitaxian Raptor here. I think that card is unplayable in draft, as is Minor Misstep. And now we're going to be a little bit sad because we did open a Phyrexian Praetor, which is incredible. Again, all of the newest Phyrexian Praetors are available at Mythic in this set and draft. So even though this is from Kamigawa, because we're on the plane of Phyrexia, Jin Gitaxias is hanging out here as well. That's just very, very far from what we're doing here. Even if I cut one of my 2 colors and try to pivot into blue, I'm very much an aggressive deck that can't use 7-drops super well, so I don't think any of my cards work super well with that. I like Annihilating Glare quite a bit for this archetype. We have cards like Crawling Chorus that can spit out a Phyrexian Might that's very expendable to sacrifice to play this for only 1 mana. We could also potentially have cards like Skull Bomb sitting around. We could sacrifice an artifact to cast this for 1 mana, so I like that. Ribskiff or Dross Pits would be great wheels, but I'm going to take Annihilating Glare. Make sure we have some cheap removal in the deck. Alright, pack 2, pick 2 now. Whisper of the Dross seems pretty good for our deck, but Mere Convert is just another 2-mana toxic creature that works well with our 3-drop Flensing Raptors, as well as being a potential mana dork and mana fixer if we need it. Actually, Convert looks kind of sweet in here. I'm actually going to take that. We could also go for the Bladehold War Whip and splash it in. An equipment that gives Double Strike is pretty nuts in an aggressive strategy. And if you have a toxic creature with Double Strike, it will give your opponent a poison counter twice. That's kind of cool. But I think Mere Convert just looks excellent here. Whispers of the Dross would be a great wheel if we're lucky. If not that, maybe an Expanse or something. Take the Convert for now. Alright, pack 2, pick 3. We now have a Porcelain Zealot, which is a pretty solid addition to aggressive toxic decks like this, because at the beginning of combat during our turn, we can give a toxic creature +2/+2 till end of turn. So it sort of has haste where it adds extra damage the second it hits the board. The turn that it hits the board, it's adding 2 damage. And pretty flexible ability, putting that +2/+2 wherever we need it. And if we don't happen to have a toxic creature, it's still +1/+1 wherever we need it every turn, which is nice. Love to wheel the Whisper of the Dross or the Fair Basilica. Don't know how likely that is. Incisor Glider or Complete Devotion both look great as well. A combat trick that draws us a card if we're casting on a toxic creature, and a card that can give our whole board +1/+1 if our opponent is corrupted, which is something we can actually legitimately try to do here. Alright, Fleshless Gladiator looks fine. Slaughter Singer is the closest to what we're trying to do, but we don't have great mana fixing for it. We do have one Mirror Convert already. I guess I could run a Hunter Maze over a Forest, which is kind of helpful. Yeah, I'm only missing out on a Fleshless Gladiator, which isn't too bad. So we'll take a Slaughter Singer here, I suppose. Mirror Kinsmith actually looks kind of interesting as well. If you end up with a deck with like 2 other Mirror, I think it's pretty good. We do have the 1 Mirror Convert, which is cool, but I'm just still going to go Slaughter Singer. Potential Splash. Would be a difficult one, though. Don't think it's incredibly likely. Vanish into Eternity, Testament Bearer, and Dross Skull Bomb. All look excellent. This is a creature that blocks really well and just threatens a lot of regular combat damage and draws us an additional card when it does so. This is, of course, that removal spell that's very slow, but important to have some. We do at least have the 1 Annihilating Glare. The Skull Bomb's a really good value play. I think I'm going to go Testament Bearer here. I do want to try this card out. I think this looks like a very, very solid card in black, probably one of black's top commons. Another Mirror Convert looks awesome in this deck. Now we'll have 2 of them to help splash in the Slaughter Singer. I don't know why I would have called this Slaughter Slinger. I guess it's just fun because it's alliteration. Whisper of the Dross looking pretty cool for this deck too, but I think Convert is likely better, so we'll take it first. Doom Mover looks super fine to me. 2 mana for a 2/1 with Toxic. Again, make sure that every 2-drop in this deck has Toxic to go with our turn 3 Flensing Raptors. And this is another card that can just tutor out our Forest for Slaughter Singer. Still feels really weird to try to splash in a 2-drop aggressive card, but we're getting close to making it easy enough to do. Like 3 mana fixers total, 2 Mirror and a Doom Mover. Okay, well here's a card that would be much easier to splash in. A 4 mana card that stays relevant kind of throughout the whole game. 4 mana for a 1/5 Toxic 2, and whenever any creature you control with Toxic deals combat damage to a player, they get an additional poison counter. You can also give your Toxic creatures Death Touch. That is an excellent splash, because it's a later game play. Now we can take a Cruel Grimnark, but I'd rather just have a Dross Pits here. Yeah, we're probably not splashing in Singer, but splashing in Necrogen Rot Priest is super reasonable. Makes all of our small toxic creatures still matter late in the game because they can all turn into Death Touchers, and it threatens to get a lot of poison on our opponent pretty quickly. Alright, we do wheel one of the Whispers of the Dross. We'll absolutely take it. We can use this to trade up or win a combat against an equally sized creature while also proliferating poison onto our opponent. We now take an Incisor Glider. If our opponent becomes corrupted, that will buff our whole board and we'll hit a little harder. Probably going to get cut just because I want pretty much all my 2 mana cards to just be toxic at this point. We only have the 2 Flensing Raptors. Didn't find any more copies in pack 2, but maybe we can get one pack 3. I am going to take them really, really highly because we have 1, 2, 3, 4 2 mana toxic creatures to go with them, which lead into some really explosive curves. Alright, let's see what we open up in pack 3. Well, nothing exceptional, but we opened up the 3rd Flensing Raptor, so I'm going to go with it. We'd love to wheel the Blightbelly Rat if we're lucky. If we don't wheel that, though, another Whisper of the Dross or a Zealot's Conviction, both also fine, as would the Shieldred's Headcleaver. That would also be fine. Tablet of Completion is a cool rare, but it's really, really slow and very far from what our deck is trying to do, so we'll take Flensing Raptor. Pack 3, pick 1. Alright, pack 3, pick 2. We have a Sinew Dancer competing with a Headcleaver on color. Both are fine. Green Sun's Twilight I have found to be pretty good if you can make it to 6 mana consistently. Probably not worth the splash though, because we're pretty aggressive. But it is always a 2-for-1. Like, you spend 6 mana, put your best creature in the top 5 on board, and put a land on board. I don't know, I think we're aggressive enough we don't care about that too much. Probably rather just take a Sinew Dancer here. We can corrupt our opponent relatively easily and try to lock down their blockers with that. Get more poison in. Okay, now we have Terramorphic Expanse being a reasonable way to help splash in the Rot Priest. We also have Skull Bomb looking really good, and Chittering Skitterling also looking pretty decent here. Pretty great card if you're corrupted. Then anytime your opponent casts a removal spell, you just sack your creature in response to draw a card. Obviously great if we get any Phyrexian Mites, but we only have the one card that makes them. But it seems somewhat easy to get ourselves corrupted, or get our opponent corrupted here. So I'm actually going to go Skitterling here, hopefully wield a Skull Bomb if we're super lucky, or maybe the Terramorphic Expanse. That rare is super bad in our deck. It gives all our creatures -1/-1, which is great when you've built your deck around it, but we haven't. We have a lot of 2/1s in here. So that rare gives all our creatures -1/-1, but it lets us return creatures from our grave to the battlefield. So it gives you a pretty high payoff for that kind of nasty effect, but we don't really have a good home for it. Another Dross Pits versus our 5th 2-mana toxic creature is pretty hard. So having 5 2-mana toxic creatures is so good. Now, we have 4 Flensing Raptors now. The fact that we have 4 Flensing Raptors means I do just really want a ton of 2-mana toxic creatures. I'll take another Dune Mover and make the green splash for Rot Priest the easiest thing in the universe. We are passing up on an Edict, but I don't love Edict-style removal abilities. Pick 6, we get a Blight Belly Rat versus a Vanish. I'm just going to go all in. We're going to be like no removal, all toxic. Just try to curve out and kill our opponent before they play anything too explosive. See how well it works for us. We might be aggressive enough and toxic enough to use Charge of the Mites. I think I would like it better than Inquiry or a 6-drop, so sure, we'll take a Charge of the Mites. Might try it out here. Don't think it's a card I'm going to use in a lot of my decks, but I might use it in this one. Scrap Trap is fine at the top end of the curve to proliferate twice, but Bonepricker Scourge is really nice if we corrupt our opponent, which is kind of easy for us to do. We do have a lot of 4-mana creatures already. 4 Flensing Raptors and a Skitterling. Kind of hard to make room for another one. Yeah, I'm actually going to go Scrap Trap at 5. Get another 5-drop to play over the Bargish. Another Whisper of the Dross looks reasonable. We've got 1 Basilica, 1 Dross Pits. That's pretty sweet. Again, low on removal, but we're trying to just kill our opponent before they play anything explosive. We just really get toxic and play so many evasive threats with all these flying toxic creatures that we might just not care what's on their board. Gold Warden's Helm probably gets cut over all these other 3-drops. Inquiry also a possible, if not likely, cut. Don't know what we cut after that, though. Do need to find a few more. That is such a late Serum Core Chimera. I think this card is phenomenal in the blue-red spells deck. If you want to see it in action, you can check out the first 2 early access drafts that I've done. I guess it's a little bit spoilers, but definitely played a lot of copies of that card in the past already. And enjoyed it thoroughly every time. Same with Experimental Augury, great for that blue-red spells deck. If anybody was trying to wheel those with like 2 cards left in the pack, we'll punish them, I guess, because we're not playing anything out of those packs anyway. Pick 13, the Dross Pits. Give it to me. I will be very happy. Alright, we just need to cut 1 or 2 cards. I might actually just cut Bladed Ambassador here and play exclusively toxic creatures. Because I gotta cut something. As good of a 2-drop as it is, all of our other creatures are toxic. I guess the Glider isn't, but we could just run 6 2-mana toxic creatures to go with our playset of Raptors, which feels really good. 20 creatures? Yeah, we cut creatures over anything else, so cut those 2. We're all in doing really nasty toxic stuff. We still have 18, so probably just cut 1 more creature and call it a deck. Maybe Testament Bearer? It's good value, but toxic, proliferate, toxic, buff our toxic, 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 toxic. Everything else is just like exactly on brand, on theme, even though this is a good value play. We're just so poisonous. Everything is on theme this way. Yeah, I think I'm doing that, and we're calling it a deck here at 17 creatures. Get to try out the Charge of the Mites here, which will be interesting. Yeah, that's a deck. Alright, here we have a look at the deck we're going to be playing today. This is a black-white toxic aggro deck. The name of the game here is to play one of our 6 2-mana toxic creatures and follow it up with one of our 4 Flensing Raptors to send them into the sky, guaranteeing that damage to our opponent's face, as well as those poison counters. We have tons and tons and tons of toxic stuff. That's 10 toxic cards right there between the 2-drops and the 3-drop Raptors, so it's pretty easy to get our opponent towards Corrupted, so cards like Chittering Skitterling are guaranteed to be able to give us that very good activated ability throughout the game. Whenever our opponent uses a removal spell on any of our cards, we can sack it at instant speed to draw a card if this is around. We can also use this to sacrifice any mites that we get off of a potential Crawling Chorus or a Charge of the Mites type card to draw cards that way as well. Got a bit of a green splash here for Necrogen Rot Priest, which really pressures our opponents by giving them an extra poison counter every time we deal damage to them with a toxic creature, and allowing us to give our toxic creatures Death Touch. The ways that we're casting it are 2 copies of Mere Convert that add a mana of any color while being an aggressive toxic creature, and 2 Dune Movers that pull out a forest from our deck and put it on top while being another aggressive toxic creature. Little bit of reach here, a little bit of extra ways to get poison counters on our opponent if we can't quite get there that way. We have Gulping Scrap Trap, proliferating when it enters the battlefield or dies, Infectious Inquiry, putting another poison counter on our opponent guaranteed, and 2 Whispers of the Dross to proliferate. When it comes to interaction and removal, we're pretty low on it. We have the 1 Annihilating Glare to destroy any creature or planeswalker. Charge of the Mites, that'll probably be decent removal with the high creature count and aggressive nature of this deck. And then 2 copies of Whisper of the Dross that we mainly have to use as kind of combat trick style removal, but they do proliferate while we cast them, and at only a rate of 1 mana, they should be pretty solid in the deck. So that's the game plan, that's the deck. Gonna win some games with Toxic, some games with just flat out combat damage, and hopefully just win a lot of games in general. We'll see how it goes as we head into the gameplay. So here we are in game 1. I don't love mulliganing this hand, but it almost feels like we're playing a combo deck with the 7 toxic cards that cost 1 or 2 mana and the 4 Flensing Raptors. So it kind of almost feels like a mulligan just because I don't have the toxic creature before the Flensing Raptor. But I do have 7 cards I could draw into that I could play by turn 2 to still do the Flensing Raptor thing, so it's probably not a mulligan. And there you go, Mere Convert, never didn't have it. We just go Sinew Dancer into Convert into Raptor. And there's the curve, and now the hand is beautiful, and I'm very happy I didn't mulligan. Opponent is on blue-red, they're going to play a Dune Mover on turn 2. Wow, we have a Blightbelly Rat to play turn 2 as well, which is better here. Probably the Rat, because we're happier with it dying at some point than the Convert. Wow, I can even Whisper the Dross their 2-1. That's going to be a great card here. I think I go Rat for now, send the Rat into the sky, hit them. And then we're going to Whisper the Mover. Turn after that, we play Convert and Whisper. I'm fine with Sinew Dancer for Dune Mover. I might block if they send it in. Well, no. We have Whisper. We have the Whisper I was just talking about. I'm not going to trade Sinew Dancer into this Dune Mover. Unless I'm worried that they really care about toxicking us, which it doesn't look like. Alright, we get the Raptor down. We're going to take some damage from this Cackler, but get some Toxic in there. Hit them for 3 and a poison counter. They're at 17 life, 1 poison. Opponent has a good attack with Cackler for sure. We're also just going to take a Toxic here rather than trade Dancer off, because again, I have that 1 mana Whisper next turn. That's really easy for me to cast. So hopefully they don't have a ton of Proliferate to get this up to 3 to buff their Toxic cards. And as soon as they do Proliferate, though, this Venser is going to do really bad things. Giving them a 3/3 artifact creature, and then if they proliferate more, they give it flying lifelink every time they do. Not ideal. Not ideal for me. I guess I could Whisper to kill Venser here if they block. If they double block, I Whisper of the Dross on Venser instead. Maybe actually just get attacks in. Because Whisper can kill a 1/3 instead of the 2/1, which is just a better kill. If we're really lucky, they double block trying to kill the Blightbelly Rat, and then we get to kill Venser. If they single block, they're probably single blocking with the other 1/3, and then I'm not super happy. Still think I'm happier to kill the 1/3 that maybe gets unblockable later in the game than the 2/1 here. Yeah, I think I do just use this. They're at 3 poison now, which means Sinew Dancer is active. Play the Convert. As much as I want to play a Dross Pits, it's probably worth it to play the Plains since my Sinew Dancer is ready to go. Okay, they're moving to combat. Not really worried about Toxic. I think that's 2 trampling damage. Venser gains them life and blocks better. Well, no, blocks just as well as Cackler. Yeah, we shut off Cackler. Probably attack with Dune Mover at least here. Or they're just trying to be real defensive and just attack with nothing. Okay, send in Dune Mover. And I think I just allow it in. Down to 14 and 2 poison. And they pass turn. Okay, we've got a Scrap Trap later. Can tap down Venser, hit them for 3 poison and 5 damage total. But then I obviously don't tap it down anything when they go to combat on their own. Isn't great. I could tap out for Scrap Trap and have a 4/4 blocker. And I'm not using Sinew Dancer. I'm going to threaten another Whisper of the Dross here. Oh, no, they can read this. Yeah, because I was going to say, if I had a Whisper of the Dross, I could attack with Mere Convert as well. Because I'd make the Venser a 0/2. Yeah, good read from my opponent. Good read from my opponent there. Okay. We're just going to play the Scrap Trap here, proliferate on them. It hits the board and when it dies. Unless they have a counterspell, that would not be good for us. Alright, so opponent is at 14 life and 5 poison. We're at 12 life and 2 poison, and the game's looking really close here. If they proliferate just one time, though, that's going to swing in our opponent's favor. Venser gets to do some gross stuff. They're going to Serum Snare, bounce the Scrap Trap, and now I have no good blockers this turn, which is very helpful for our opponent to get pretty far ahead in the race. Yep, returning Scrap Trap to my hand is pretty bad for me. Now Sulfie, Mayhem, Dominus, as soon as they draw one more card, they can discard 2 to make that indestructible. But hey, just play the Skull Bomb, so I guess probably not making Dominus indestructible anytime soon. Attack with everybody. I can trade into the Dune Mover, or I can put 3 poison on them and then proliferate. I'd have to hit a land to do that, but that would put them at 9 poison. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 damage this turn. I'm down to 7. Then they hit for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Definitely more than 7, but I can chump block. I think I'm trying to just outrace them and poison them out of this game, so I take all this. Hold up the Sinew Dancer. Yes, and we hit the mana. So I can tap Sulfime, attack with everybody. and play the Scrap Trap, and if the Scrap Trap dies, then they die. They're playing off the top here. 8 poison, put them to 9 poison. We don't die on the crackback because we block that, take 2, 3, 4, 5. I die to removal if I do that. Is there a way to still pretty much guarantee that they die and I don't die to removal? I think there is. Right, because we can just hit them to 7 poison here and then save the Blight Belly Rat, which proliferates when it blocks and dies. So yeah, that seems good. I think that still pretty much guarantees that they die to poison next turn. And it plays around removal, so we don't just die to removal spell. If they kill Scrap Trap. Or I guess if they killed Scrap Trap, then they would die because we'd proliferate onto them. But if they have a bounce spell again to put it back in our hand, or if they have an exile spell, or something that taps it down, 3 things that do exist in their colors. They have bounce spells off of Serum Snares and Spell Bombs. They have aura-based removal off of the double blue Mesmerizing Dose, and they have exile removal in black in this format, so I think this is still the better play. I think it's still safer, and still pretty much gets them killed next turn, regardless. They can put oil counters on one of their creatures to make Cackler attack as a 3/3 trampler instead of a 2/3 trampler. So, a little more damage coming towards us than it looked like when you account the Skull Bomb oil counters with the Cackler's ability to get +1/+0 for each creature with an oil counter you control. Oil counters onto the Cackler itself. It does buff itself if it has oil counters, and no outs, so they're going to scoop them up. That's a poison victory from the black-white toxic deck. Spicy stuff. Really nice to poison somebody out in the Phyrexia format. That is super flavorful. Alright, great stuff. Really close game. Super spicy stuff. We were close to dead there at 7 life against all this. But yeah, by the skin of our teeth, find the 10 poison counters to infect our opponent. Here we are in game 2. This is close to a mulligan, but we've got that good card draw from Infectious Inquiry to find some more threats to put on the board, so I'm going to keep it. And obviously the mana is pretty perfect. We're like a little bit flooded, but we've got all our colors, which is great. So start out with our Skull Bomb into Convert into Inquiry here. Try to draw some threats. Opponent is on black-red, and they are on the play, so highly unlikely that this Convert is going to be able to get in. Alright, worst case scenario, trades into the Slinger. Unfortunately, our first 2 draws are 2 more lands. Luckily for us, we've hit 6 lands this soon, which means our deck is now only 26% lands from this point on. So should be hitting some non-land gas at this point. We've got Infectious Inquiry for the draw 2 here, which is going to be nice. Don't really want to trade into Slinger, especially when my opponent missed land drop 3. I'll just keep this around for if they ever don't hold up a blocker. And I can also Skull Bomb it, and of course, if I draw double Raptor, that is definitely a way to get in some toxic damage with the Mere Convert. We're just going to play 2 Raptors in a row here, and then Skull Bomb it the turn after that. Anoint with Affliction. Well, never mind. At least they killed the 2/1 on the ground instead of the 2/2 in the sky. So, is what it is. Raptor hits the board. We can play the other Raptor to give the other one +1/+1 at least. Which is a thing. There's the 3rd land from our opponent. Hopefully no Volt Charge. That is not a Volt Charge, but it is kind of a spooky, aggressive creature here. Stinging Hive Master. Probably play Convert and Raptor and just Skull Bomb the Convert up next turn. Just get in for 1 extra damage with this Raptor right now. Could also trade the Convert on the ground with the Hive Master. That's fine. Don't love it, but it's fine. Because I'm taking 5 here and going to 9 life if I don't block something. I'm drawing multiple cards though, hitting for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We might still race this. We're hitting for 8 on the crackback. Light Belly Rat, they hit for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's not lethal. And I have a rat now to play on blocks, which is excellent here. Guys, Skull Bomb that up. See what we draw. Chittering Skitterling. Well, our opponent is certainly erupted. I almost feel like I'd rather play the rat. I don't know why. I guess because it can trade off and still poison them a little. So they're down to 9 and up to 5 poison. I guess a 1/4 blocker is just really good here. Block there, take 4. And if they play any removal spells, I can respond by drawing cards off Skitterling's ability. Yeah, no, we probably play Skitterling and pass. It can even sacrifice itself to draw a card, so even if my opponent goes like removal spell on Skitterling, I just sack it, draw a card. So we're hitting them for 4 in the sky each turn, as well as 2 toxic in the sky, 2 poison in the sky each turn. We are really hurting though. We're at 9 life, they're at 9 life. They get the first attack here in the 9 life war. This makes me very scared they're going to lethal me, but we'll see. Get hit for 4, we're down to 5. Take another poison. We're at 2 poison counters and 5 life. But they went for an all attack. They're holding no blocks up for Mirror Convert. Maybe it just means they're going to play another ground creature. They know they're not going to block in the sky anyway, so might as well hit as hard as they can. Axiom Engraver for a 1/3 blocker on the ground. And then Annihilating Glare to kill one of my Flensing Raptors. At least I get to draw a card off of this. But that is bad for me. Only 1 flyer now. Draw a card, hit a plains. They do proliferate a poison counter onto me and an oil counter onto the Engraver. When that rat dies, and we hit a Dune Mover. Not exceptional, but it is a blocker for us, which is something. I think I cycle the Basilica here. I still have the mana to play both the Mover and the rat afterwards. After playing my land for turn. We hit another Dune Mover. I think I'd rather play rat plus Mover than double Mover here. And we only attack with the Flensing Raptor. 6th poison counter on them, and they're down to 7 life. Here's a Blight Belly Rat on blocks. Here's a Dune Mover on blocks. I am not going to look for more lands right now. We're doing pretty good on that front. Our opponent is missing a lot of lands. We're hitting a lot of lands. Opponent is missing a lot of lands. Kind of the two ends of the spectrum here. Axiom Engraver discards a 5-drop to draw a card. And Chittering Skitterling of their own. Very nice for these archetypes. Now they go for the pass turn here. We just draw for turn then. Another land for us. Put them to the 7th poison with the Raptor. They can block all of our toxic creatures, so we're not going to get any more poison on them by attacking on the ground. Yep, hit for 2 in the sky. Play a Dune Mover and pass. They are at 5 life and 7 poison. The life is draining from them in multiple ways. That being said, I'm at 5 life and 3 poison, so I'm not doing so hot either. I'm not going to die to poison, but a lot of things that could threaten to kill me kind of instantaneously. If they have anything to just give like +2/+2 flying, we're dead. Don't think there's anything that can do that in red-black, though. Oh, hi, Shieldred. So, as we saw during the draft, when we saw Jin-Gitaxias, The Praetors from all the recent sets are in this format at Mythic Rare. You can hit them. Shieldred is super bad for me now. I have to kill them off of poison, which we're really close to doing, but I don't know if we do it fast enough, especially because if I draw cards off Skitterling, I'm losing even more life. I kill them in 2 turns, right? Because I can just sack the rat to Skitterling. I guess Shieldred triggers before the rat does. Wow, that's rough. Wait, no, I think Shieldred just beats us because Shieldred triggers before the rat. I guess if I hit my 3rd or 4th Raptor there, I would have won on the spot. And I have 1 more turn to do so, because I have 5 blockers for their 5 attackers. And if they attack me, I get to sack the block with the rat and poison them. Alright. 1 more draw step to hit another Flensing Raptor. Or one of my Proliferate cards. There's actually a lot of outs. Flensing Raptor, or a Proliferate card, or... well, I guess that's it. I already played the Inquiry, and the Inquiry would hit me hard enough to kill me. So we have like 2 Whispers of the Dross, 2 Flensing Raptors. That's at least 4 outs out of these 19 cards. So at least like a 25% chance of victory, because there's got to be a 5th out I'm just not thinking of. Most likely. I guess the white Spellbomb doesn't do it. I already hit the white Spellbomb, but also I would draw a card, which means Shieldred would hit me. And I would die, because I'm going to 1 in my next turn. Rebel Salvo. Okay, I guess I lose. Yep, I just have to take 1 damage to die during my upkeep. And they have 4 attackers. Unfortunate. I'd at least like to lose to something in the set, you know? Than a Praetor from out of it. They might play it safe here and make sure they don't kill my Blightbelly Rat. Ooh, they're playing it safe. That gives me an out. That gives me 1 chance to draw an out. But Porcelain Zealot is not that out. Well, almost. Almost. We would have won handedly if they didn't have Shieldred. But instead we will lose pretty handedly. I can attack with the rat, and then if they kill it, then I kill them, but they'll just block with a 1/3. So we just flunge in, send a message. They're at 9 poison in the end. So close. So close to winning through the Shieldred there, but so far away. There's the Furnace Strider to haste another big creature out. This is when I settle the wreckage. No. This is when we lose. It's going to be a loss for us here. 1-1, I believe. Alright, here we are on the play. With this hand, we need to draw one of our 1 or 2 mana toxic creatures, ideally, for this Flensing Raptor to pop off. But we do have 7 in the deck. We have 2 draw steps to do so. Yeah, we're going to keep. We have both of our colors. We got 2 draw steps to try to hit one of our 7 1 or 2 mana toxic creatures. If we do hit one, then the hand is beautiful. And even if we don't, the hand is fine. We'll see. Oh wait, no, I only have 1 draw step. I'm on the play. I'm a buffoon. Still a definite keep. Rustvine Cultivator is the play. We did not hit a 2-drop toxic creature. Still charge the Mites out next turn if I want, depending on how they attack here. Don't attack at all. Oh yeah, I can't play it right now. Double Whisper the Dross? Okay, that actually makes Charge of the Mites very appealing. Because I can go Charge the Mites, and then I attack into their 1-2 with my 1-1 Mites, and Whisper the Dross when they block. Alternatively, I just get some Mites on the board to sack to Annihilating Glare if they play something I need to blow up. And then I can do the Glare pretty easily. And of course, getting Mites on the board gives me something to send into the sky with Fencing Raptor and get some poison on our opponent. I mean, in the hand right now, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 guaranteed poison counters. If all these cards hit them one time. The Whispers are just 100% guaranteed. Raptor plus Charge of the Mites probably getting at least 1 poison from each of those. See what our opponent's doing here. Cultivatoring into a 4-mana play on turn 3. Looks like what it is. Tap the mountain, then they untapped it naturally, probably considering untapping it to the Cultivator. Contagious Vorak, just play a 3-drop 3/3, sure. Then we don't have good attacks with the Mites, but I can still send one into the sky. So I think it's still the play, because I am way too many creatures away from this actually killing anything with the damage dealing ability. So we'll just get 2 Phyrexian Mites here in their end step. Grab a forest off the Vorak, so 3 mana 3/3 plus draw land, very good deal. And here's our 2 Phyrexian Mites. Dross Pits is the draw, which is actually a pretty good draw because I'm not going to play Annihilating Glare or Whisper of the Dross right now. So since I'm not going to do anything with my extra mana, I might as well play my tapped land. Hit them for 2 and put a poison counter on them. So they're at 18 life and 1 poison. They have 4 mana up here, a 5th mana if they use the Cultivator. Which is the play. They're going to untap a forest. They have 5 mana available. And they're going to play Cinder slash Ravager. The one time I've actually played any Phyrexian Mites, my opponent has the Cinder slash Ravager to kill them. The one time meaning this is the one time I've drafted Phyrexian Mite producing cards. Not that this is the first time I've made Mites this draft. Yeah, well that sucks. I guess I just Annihilating Glare the Ravager for 5 mana here. And hit my opponent. That way I'm not taking 5 damage every turn from a 5/5 Vigilance. Lattice Blade Mantis, exceptional aggro green creature. Green just seems like a premium color in this draft form, and it has so many ridiculous things. Like the Vorak, the Mantis, the 5 mana creature that gains 3 life and draws a card. If something has an oil counter, Cultivator's a good mana ramp card. There's just very many good green commons. There's just a lot of excellent commons in general in this format. Well, all I can do is Sinew Dancer and hold up some Whispers of the Dross. It's not really going to work against the green deck. I mean, I guess the Dancer will work decently, but the Whispers aren't going to do anything. Unless I double shoot the Cultivator. Probably not worth it. They can just keep playing good 4-drops. There are plenty in green. Alright, hit us very hard again. We take 8 damage here, dying very quickly. I feel like the best decks that I've played with and against have just been like green-red just curving out with really large bodies. Definitely something I'm noticing about the format, and Urbrask's Anointer is horrific for me. Shoot something for 2 here. So they target the Raptor and then I double shoot Cultivator, so at least I get to keep Raptor on board. If they target Sinnoh Dancer, it's just flat out just dead no matter what, so... Alright. Good play from our opponent, play around the Dancer there. I guess it's also the more valuable card because it stops these 5/4s from attacking. But yeah, my 1-7 win run was a green-red deck and sealed, and I think a majority of my losses have just been against at least green, but I'm pretty sure green-red almost every time. It's kind of the best archetype and format, the archetype to beat, and we're certainly not beating it this game. They're going to lethal us next turn. We're not supposed to concede during the early access event. Supposed to let our opponent play all their stuff out, so I guess I'll just play it out here, but we're very dead. Just play a Raptor past the turn. We have a blocker for Anointer that's pretty decent, but we block Anointer, Vorak, we just die to these 2 creatures. So we end up having to just chump block the Mantis. And our opponent still has 5 cards left in hand because they've had multiple 2-for-1s. Ravager came into play, killed some of our creatures. Vorak came into play, drew them an additional card. Anointer came into play, killed one of our creatures. A lot of good 2-for-1s going on here. Alright, they remove the counter from Mantis, which means I can't kill it with Whispers of the Dross. Kill the Vorak at least, which is something, but then I have no creatures left. I have no creatures left either way. And this way I actually get to kill 2 creatures. At least. Okay, well, we were very dead to Volt Charge. Going to be 1 and 2 heading into round 4. Here we are, round 4 against Deathsea, one of the best drafters on Arena, constantly Mythic. Deathsea even qualified for the Mythic Invitational or Mythic Championship or something lately. So gonna be super scary. Deathsea's on Toxic as well, and unfortunately for us, didn't hit our 2-drop Toxic creature to go with our Raptors. I think I'm just going to keep the Skull Bomb. I could cycle the Swamp and see if my 1-mana 1/1 Toxic and white is on top of my library, but that's a 1 in 32 chance. Nothing else in my deck is something I would want to cast that turn, so I don't think it's worth the 1 in 32 gamble there. Alright, Mere Convert is the card on top. Rather trade a Mere Convert into one of their creatures than play a Raptor. We are under pressure here. So I just didn't have a 1-drop or 2-drop. That's the really scary thing about the Toxic decks. Like, when you just don't have an early game play, they just get that ball rolling. Now a Blight Belly Rat as well. Okay, you can play a 2/3 blocker for that. Then we have a Dune Mover for anything else. To trade into the Skull Dweller, most likely. Chrome Prowler, tap down the Zealot, hit for 2 poison. We're up to 4 now. Crawling Chorus, there it is. Chorus and Mover here. We have a very good trade for Skull Dweller and a very good trade for the Rat. Although we just have good blocks for the Rat straight up. Grab my Forest here. Probably do want to do that even if I don't have the green card right now. 5th land is not terrible. Send in Chrome Prowler and the Skull Dweller. Easy trade. Fine trade. Geth gives all their creatures -1/-1, but they can return creatures from grave to battlefield, which is super nasty. Not gonna be having a lot of fun against that. So these don't do anything, but they can bring back the Prowler, tap one of my blockers. Hit for a ton. Yeah, that's not great. Kind of even out the life totals. Deathsea's down to 16 and has 1 poison counter. We're at 15 with 4 poison counters. We're definitely farther behind here. But we're on the way, we're working on it. Two Flensing Raptors in a row is going to be really nice for staying aggressive here. I believe Geth works at sorcery speed. Yes. So Deathsea can only bring back a creature from his grave at sorcery speed. So cycle the Surgical Bay away. Play a land for turn, and Deathsea can still use the Geth and bring the Chrome Cat back. Taps down one of my creatures, but doesn't actually attack in at all. Because we'll still have a 2/2 to block the 1/1. Yeah, this Geth is actually just not doing so hot for Deathsea here. Geth's one of those really, really weird cards that's super hard to parse how good it's going to be. So I'm glad Deathsea is trying it out before I do, because this is the kind of card I'm just not going to try running until I see a lot of people play with it and see how good it is. Right now, it's not that great for Deathsea. There's 2 creatures that he can't get back, and Deathsea's board is significantly worse thanks to the -1/-1. So I think this Geth is just working out in our favor right now pretty well. Hit for 6. Deathsea's going to go down to 10 life and 3 poison. We are still at 15 life and 4 poison. So life totals are pretty much even now. We've got 1 more poison, but Deathsea has 5 less life. So I think we're actually just slightly in the lead, especially with a Skull Bomb on board to give +2/+2 flying to something next turn. Make a really threatening attack. Geth can get in for 3. That's fine by me. Draw into a land. We'll see what we get off of Skull Bomb. Send the Might into the sky and buff it with Zealot. Another Flensing Raptor. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Give double flying here, I guess. It's better than not playing a creature. Double flying to the Might. No, I'll just buff a Raptor, I guess. 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh wait, no, it's just 10. Never mind, I forgot about the Zealot. It's exact lethal. And Deathsea's just dead there. I'm going to chalk up a lot of that to just Geth not being very good for Deathsea in that position. Managed to bring back 1 card from grave, but the other 2 can't come back because they just have 1 toughness, and the board state is worse there. But a lot of that was also Triple Raptor. Triple Raptor was stupid. That was pretty dumb, so pretty absurd stuff from the Black-White Toxic deck there, and we're going to be 2-2 now, heading into game number 5. Here we are on the play. Seems a little awkward because we want to draw both a land and a 2-mana or less toxic creature, but I know I have Sinew Dancer, and any land gets us to double Raptor, which is always great. So I am going to keep it here. We need a little bit of luck in our early draws. But we'll see how it works out for us. Our opponent has taken a mulligan, and we're just going to drop our turn 1 Sinew Dancer and pass the turn. Forest turn 1 from our opponent. There's turn 2 Dune Mover, which is the perfect draw. Gives us the 2-mana toxic creature to send into the sky with the raptors, and guarantees that we hit a land next turn, specifically a swamp, so we can even cast Annihilating Glare when we want to do that. Turn 2 for our opponent. They're on green and white. Tends to be a pretty toxic heavy color pair as well. And they are going to go for a Mirror Convert on turn 2, get a toxic card. Here's our Flensing Raptor to hop into the sky with Dune Mover. Could offer the trade with Sinew Dancer. I could just take the trade on blocks as well, because I guess if I want to. But the one thing is that if my opponent gets 3 poison counters, then I do have the nice ability on Sinew Dancer. But I've also got an Annihilating Glare coming up to blow up a big creature, and I can just keep hitting them in the sky, so I don't really need to be tapping stuff all the time. Yeah, it might be nice to just trade Sinew Dancer into the Convert if they offer the trade to get more stuff out of the way for toxic creatures to get in by lowering their creature count. Alright, Duelist of Deep Faith, another toxic creature. Time to send the Dune Mover into the sky again. And keep hitting our opponent and keep poisoning them. Flensing Raptor. Probably the #1 reason to push into a white-based toxic deck. Just scoop up every single copy of Flensing Raptor you see, and every 2-mana toxic card you see. That's what we did here, and it feels like a solid strategy. Probably one of the best strategies if you're just trying to be an aggro deck in this format. Well, I mean, green-red aggro is the best, but that's more like mid-rangey, like beefy aggro. But if you want to be really low-curve aggro, I think just Flensing Raptor the deck is the best way to do it. Sinew Dancer is active now. 1 mana to tap stuff down. We've got our Porcelain Zealot next turn as well, which will be beautiful, hitting for 6 damage in the sky if nothing else. Just buffing up one of these raptors for +2/+2. And that is only if I hit a land next turn though, otherwise we'll just be playing a Crawling Chorus. And potentially an Annihilating Glare if we need to. But I could play Chorus and Glare and tap something with Sinew Dancer, which is pretty spicy. Opponent drops a Canker Bloom here. They can sack to destroy an artifact or enchantment or proliferate. We can kill our Dune Mover with that. And then they play a Skrelv, which is a pretty nice toxic card. Can give one of their creatures like unblockable and stuff. Can't be blocked by creatures of a certain color and hexproof from a color, so fun toxic card. I would definitely run it in this deck if we had seen one. So cool card for sure, but we're just going to keep getting that damage in the sky. We did hit the mana for Porcelain Zealot, so hit for 6 in the sky. Threatening lethal in 2 attacks. And putting them to 5 poison total. Very scary in multiple ways, and they're just going to scoop them up after that. It's going to be 3 and 2 for this deck, at least an average run for us. I'm all for it, but we'll see if we can keep running those wins up as we head into round 6. Alright, here we are on the play again. That classic have the Flensing Raptor, just need one of the 7 2-mana or less toxic creatures. Cross our fingers here. Again, even if we don't hit them, it's a solid hand, but we would very much prefer to get to play a toxic creature and then the Raptor, and there you go, Dune Mover. 5-mana card in my hand, so I am going to pick up the Forest here, because I am looking for more mana. And this way, if I hit my green card, it's castable. Green-white from our opponent. Jawbone Duelist for a 2/1 double strike toxic. Very good against 1/1s like our Dune Mover. And it's threatening to put 2 poison counters on me every turn, which I'm not in love with. It's obviously pretty incredible with combat tricks as well, which is always going to be a big risk when we go to block it. Ossification here to exile Flensing Raptor. Incredible curve from our opponent here. 1-drop, 2-drop removal spell. Well, Porcelain Zealot, speaking of incredible curves, I mean 2-drop into Raptor into Zealot is also pretty good. Trying to make the most of it here. See if we can outrace our opponent. They're down to 13 and 2 poison counters. Send in that Duelist, they can combat trick to kill Zealot. +2/+2 draw card combat trick is the one that would do it. They could hit us for 6 if we don't block it. Trap Skitterling coming up. Combat trick is just so horrible for us. I don't think we can afford to make them have it here. And if they just pass the turn, I feel like they almost definitely just have it. Oh, Sinnoh Dancer's active now. Guess we're kind of screwed then. Wow, yeah, I just needed to make that block and hope they didn't have a combat trick, because now that Sinnoh Dancer's active, we just can't do anything. Anyway. I mean, I guess a 1/4 is pretty good against the 1/1 double strike. So, like, if they have the combat trick, we're gonna see it now. Dancer taps down the Dune Mover to keep the Skitterling off of Corrupted. Hit for 2, block the 1/1 with the 1/4 instead of the 2/3. That's the play. Drop the Skull Bomb. Indoctrination Attendant, tap out for that here, means no attacks for them. And no tapping. Skull Bombing a Dune Mover into the sky, threatening a lot of damage. And gets the Skitterling active, which is big. Hit for 6, put them to 5. I think that's where I'm at here. Let's see what we hit. Hit a Dune Mover, but I don't have 2 mana untapped. Well, this is going to be a close game no matter what happens now. Opponent's at 5 life here, and we have 3 Raptors still in the deck. Which, with a Zealot on board, would just be instantaneous lethal. Well, not through the Sinnoh Dancer. Yeah, no, the Sinnoh Dancer being up from now on means it's probably not going to happen. Alright, block Duelist with Skitterling. We get to see what their combat trick was. Yep, they had the +2/+2 draw card. So we played as best we could. Like, the Dancer gets active, but we wouldn't have the Zealot anymore, and if we didn't have the Zealot, our opponent would not be down to 5 life right now, so it actually panned out in our favor that I did play around that combat trick here. Another land for us. It's fine, we can play Rot Priest and Mover now. Thanks to that, and there's a Blight Belly Rat I could play instead. Rot Priest plus Rat here. I'm not going to have any attacks because of the Sinnoh Dancer. I think they're probably not going to let us trade into the Attendant here with Dune Mover. Yeah, they're not going to. Okay, so no attacks. I think it is Rot Priest Rat here. I don't want to put any more lands on top of my library right now. Well, I guess if I did, I could guarantee 7 mana to play 5-drop, 2-drop next turn. Alright, a 1-5, yeah, forced my opponent to have another combat trick there, and they did not. So we can just keep playing some stuff on the board, waiting until we can get rid of the Sinew Dancer. I do have multiple Whispers of the Dross for -1/-1 that's really good in this matchup. So if we hit some of those Whispers, we're going to be in a great spot. Go large or go wide here? I think I'd go wide here, actually. This way, Whispers of the Dross kind of turn into pretty much immediate lethal. As soon as we whittle down their board, they have 3 blockers, we have 6 potential attackers. Sinew Dancer, even tapping down a creature, is pretty much equivalent to if they, like, blocked it with Sinew Dancer, like we can count that as one of the 3 blockers. So yeah, 6 attackers versus 3 blockers. If we start drawing some Whispers, we're going places. Or Flensing Raptors. Just to have some flyers to force them to tap that down instead. Apostle of Invasion, a 4/4 flying double strike. Oh, hello, Annihilating Glare. Alright, I'm not scared. We're fine. Everything's okay. We're doing good. Goodbye, Apostle. Make a 4/4 here, force a double block. Or do I go 4/3 trade into Attendant? 4/3 trade into Attendant, or if I do it on the Rat, they have to double block with Attendant and Dancer, or Attendant Duelist, and I can kill the Dancer or the Duelist instead? Yeah, that's actually really good. That it forces a double block here. Or they can go to 1. Yeah, go to 1 it is. Put an extra poison counter from the Rot Priest. That puts them at 1 life and 5 poison. If I just have 1 more attacker than they have blockers, they are dead on board. We definitely do right now. That could change. A lot of bombs in this format. The gigantic white Planeswalker would win the game for them here, though. The Wandering Emperor, the new version. 6 mana, 6 loyalty Planeswalker, can blow up everything on board except for 2 creatures of their choice. So they choose our worst creature and their best creature, turn the board into that. Go for some big Duelist swings here. Are we about to just die to Duelist with the combat trick? Or do we have the game on lock here, and this is the chump attack in the end? Let's see. I'll make the only block I can, which is to stop Attendant at least. But is Jawbone Duelist going to kill me here? Complete Devotion on Duelist, that's 10 damage in the sky. 10 damage is not lethal. And we will win the game on the crackback. We're going to be 4-2 here. So buff the Convert, doesn't really matter. Send in. Alright. Super close game there. They're even going to let me get all the poison. 11 poison and -12 health. That's the double kill, the double tap. Make sure they're very dead. 4-2. Heading into game number 7. Alright, here we are on the play. Turn 1, Crawling Chorus. Just a 1 mana 1/1 Toxic on the play is always a scary start. I'm just going to snap keep this. Don't have any of our Flensing Raptors, but we've got 4 in the deck, so we could definitely draw into them to keep our scary start going. Ooh, wow, now we're just curving out with toxic creatures. Chorus into Convert, and the Convert lets us cast Rot Priest, so all our toxic creatures hit for an additional poison. Ooh, yeah, they're going to have to just trade their Justiciar into my Chorus, or otherwise they're just going to take 2 poison. We're threatening so much poison so quickly, thanks to that Rot Priest splash. Turn 3, Necrogen Rot Priest. And even when they take the trade, we get a Phyrexian Might to still threaten to push in that poison damage. They get one blocker if we can kill it. Ooh, I was gonna say we get one blocker if we can kill it. We hit them for 6 poison. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, because this is Toxic 2. Put them to 8 poison? That's worth sacking a Sinew Dancer. I'm gonna keep the Skull Bomb so I can give a creature flying to jump over. Jump over whatever blocker they have next turn and just poison them out. But this is going to be such a quick poison victory. Almost guaranteed here, unless they like board wipe us. Oh my god, they're at 8 poison. Facing against 3 Toxic 1 creatures. Well, a Toxic 1, a Toxic 2, and a Toxic 1. And if Rot Priest stays on board, it's a Toxic 2, a Toxic 3, and a Toxic 2. Yeah, oh my god, what a curve. Turn 1 Toxic creature, turn 2 Toxic creature, turn 3 Necrogen Rot Priest is disgusting. And that curve is only possible if your 2-mana play is exactly Mere Convert. The only play that's a 2-mana Toxic creature and mana ramp to allow you to play the Rot Priest on turn 3 at the same time. That was nutty. That was, oh my god. That was the rudest thing I've done so far in this format, and I've done some nasty things with some Serum Core Chimeras. We're now 5-2 heading into game number 8. Alright, we do need to hit a land here, but we have Blightbelly Rat into Flensing Raptor into Porcelain Zealot, a very good curve that we have seen before. Super happy to repeat it here. A definite keep. Whisper of the Dross is our first draw. Not a land yet, so I'm a little scared. We do have to hit some lands soon. Dune Mover, great target for our Whisper of the Dross. Happy to see that. Alright, no land for us this turn. We'll drop that Blightbelly Rat, and one more draw step to get there. Sending the Dune Mover I will not trade, because I have a Whisper of the Dross to kill the Dune Mover soon enough. If I don't hit a land here, I'll just play Skull Bomb and kill the Dune Mover. I do hit a land, which means we're curving out with Flensing Raptor. They do have a flyer to block my rat, but it's not a 4 toughness flyer, so they're just going to take 3 here. And get a poison counter. And here we go. Actually, my hand is full of 4 mana cards now, so 4 and 5 mana cards. Actually, we're not home free yet, but just Skull Bomb Whisper next turn's good still. Incisor Glider, double Incisor Glider's kind of annoying. Alright, hit the land, and Porcelain Zealot's beautiful. Blocks the Dune Mover on the ground, and it keeps my creatures big enough to be attacking here. They can double block, but they can't kill anything. Whichever one I buff is just going to hit them, so which one do I want as a blocker more? So I'd rather have the flyer as a blocker so I can block the 1/3s. In the sky. I hit just as hard either way. I'm only hitting with whatever I buff. If my opponent proliferates, we could be in for it here, because these would both be active, giving their whole board +1/+1 whenever they attack. That includes themselves. So if they proliferate and give us a 3rd poison counter, they're going to start attacking with 3/6 flyers and a 4/3 Dune Mover. Or 3/5 flyers and a 4/3 Dune Mover. And our hopes and dreams might fade away very quickly. Alright, take the 4 damage, they're down to 13, and get their 2nd poison counter. Send in the Dune Mover. If I keep them from Corrupted for these Incisor Gliders, I'm in a decent spot even if I lose the Zealot. Kind of feel like I have to do that because the Incisor Gliders are so nasty when Corrupted. I guess I don't really crack back at them without the Zealot. Yeah, I guess we're Corrupted. Jawbone Duelist. Well, there's another excellent way to use a combat trick that's pretty spooky. Probably killing that with my Whisper of the Dross. Let's play a Skitterling before anything else happens. That way, if anything's going to end up dying somehow, I can draw a card off of it. Buff the Raptor here because no longer is it going to block well against those Incisor Gliders that are going to be attacking. Then I try to kill the Jawbone Duelist during this end step, and the worst case scenario is we force them to use their combat trick when they're not getting any extra damage with Duelist. If I wait to use Whisper, they're going to have all the mana up to use their combat trick, and the Incisor Glider is going to be buffing the Duelist anyway. Oh, they actually go for a chump here? To stop Skitterling from being active? Or are they combat tricking? Titanic Growth is the combat trick. Okay, so they're using the trick to kill the Raptor. Fair enough, I think I can't solve that. Yeah, I can make it a 4/6, that doesn't fix things. Okay, well, Titanic Growth is gone. But so is Flensing Raptor, so 1-for-1 trade. They traded Growth for Raptor. Now that they're tapped out, let's Whisper the Duelist, because it's scarier than Dune Mover, and we still get Skitterling Corrupted here. Pass the turn. I'm a buffoon. Oh my god, I could have done that in response and drawn the card because the creature was going to die anyway. I should have Whispered the Duelist in response and then sacked my flyer that was dead anyway. I missed a card draw, which is actually really big. That's a huge deal. That was a bad punt. That was a bad punt there. Completely forgot about that solid Corrupted value to go for. Oh, now they kill Skitterling. 7, 8, 9, 10. I take 10 damage. Or I double block here where they kill Skitterling or kill Zealot. Well, that might actually just cost us the game. That was really bad of me to miss a card draw there. Well, double block. Kill Zealot. They have another combat trick, so it just didn't even matter. Now we got rid of the first one. Yep, that's a big yikes. Well, I guess I get to draw one card here at least. I can only use this once per turn. Ooh, Nimrazer Paladin's a good draw if I hit a land. But I'm taking 6 damage here, so I don't know how much it matters. 8 life. Don't hit the land anyway. I should be 1 card deeper into my library light right now. Looks like we were just dead regardless, though. This is really, really not where we want to be. And they did have the combat trick, the Titanic Growth, so I could have kept them off Corrupted for 1 turn, but I would have lost my blocker without killing their attacker at all. So I think I made the right block of letting them corrupt these gliders. We were just kind of dead either way with that line. The one huge punt here, of course, missing out on a card draw for pretty much nothing. Forest on top for the Rot Priest, just cuz, why not? Pick it up here and play it for turn. I poke them for 1 and die to removal. Probably not. 1 damage, probably not gonna add up. Here. Cycle the Hunter's Maze away to draw a card. Take 6 down to 2. Charge of the Mites is the draw. That's not big enough to kill any of their stuff because we only have 1 creature left at this point. Skrelv? Well, we were already pretty dead and now we're extra dead because Skrelv can make one of their creatures unblockable by whatever color they choose. I guess I can kill Skrelv with Charge of the Mites to send a message. I can do that, or I can just cast the Paladin for the Scrap Trap. None of this stuff good enough to save us. So it's just, how do we want to go out? Yeah, I'll just be rude. I'll just kill a Skrelv. Pass the turn. We'll hit them too. Double rude, and draw a card off Skitterling. And draw a 2-drop? No. That's game. The Incisor Glider's being busted there. So, if I assessed threats differently, if I played very, very differently, I could have won that game. I obviously made a huge, obvious misplay not drawing the extra card when they played the combat trick to kill my flyer. But that entire time, I did have the Whispers of the Dross to kill the Dune Mover earlier, or I could have went for a block on it, and that would have kept them farther away from completed on Incisor Gliders. So I think we can actually we can definitely learn something from this game, in that double Incisor Glider, or just Incisor Gliders in general, do get really, really scary when you become corrupted. So it was probably in our best interest to, despite us having the really cool Blight Belly into Raptor into Zealot curve, trying to stay really aggro there, we should have taken some time off earlier and just made sure we stayed away from being corrupted. Because if we weren't corrupted there, they were hitting us much less, and they only played the Dune Mover for quite some time until they played the double striking Toxic creature. So if I went into that game with a completely different philosophy and decided to be on the defensive instead of on the beatdown, not just trying to curve out my Toxic creatures, and I just killed that Dune Mover the turn they played it, could have gone a lot differently, because it would have been a while before we would have been corrupted, and we would have had several blockers to throw in front of their Toxic creatures. So that could be something that we learn from moving ahead in the format, and definitely respect the value of keeping yourself uncorrupted and keeping those flyers off of you. Overall, very good run today. Nice 5-3 run with this deck. I will take it. I thought this deck was super fun and super powerful with the 6 2-mana Toxic creatures, the 1-1-mana Toxic creature, and the quadruple Raptor. Would have loved to get a 7-win run here, but you definitely can't win them all. Certainly can't 7-win them all. That would be monumentally lucky. Biggest downside of the deck was a lack of removal. That is what got us killed against the Sheoldred. We were infinitely close to winning that game. We would have won that game if we could have killed Sheoldred, but there's no removal in our deck that's good enough to do that outside of the Annihilating Glare. And the other loss was against Red-Green, where they have a lot of super beefy creatures that are just really hard to deal with cards like Whisper of the Dross. So we drew both of our Whisper of the Dross in the green-red matchup that we lost, and they were pretty much useless in that matchup, and we didn't have enough good removal against the big green-red beefy creatures. So that was the biggest flaw of the deck, and we definitely lost some games to that flaw, which is fair enough. And then the final loss there, just a really nice deck from our opponent, and a game that maybe we should have been playing from a different philosophy from the get-go there, playing on the defensive, keeping ourselves uncorrupted. But that was much more of an even match than our other two losses. Actually, the loss against Shieldred was incredibly close. Like, we really almost killed them several turns in a row. But I just mean there was probably more that we could have done from a gameplay side of things in our third loss than our first two losses. So that was the main game to try to learn things gameplay-wise from. Overall, learning things draft-wise, draft the solid removal higher, even if you are this aggressive, because it is going to get you killed, and it did get us killed in a couple games. So, 5-3, not bad at all. This was a super fun deck to draft and a super fun archetype to play. Very happy I did something different this time for the third draft of the Early Access event, instead of just sticking to my Grixis oil counters every single draft. So, very cool deck, very different archetype, and it was still pretty dang powerful for the 5-3 run. I will take it. But that is going to end today's video, and that is going to end all of the videos from the Early Access event from this point on. Starting tomorrow, Phyrexia All Will Be One will be launching on Arena for everybody, and I'll be joining you all in the regular Premier Draft queues. You'll see me there for sure if you hop on when I'm playing. So very excited for that. I am super pumped about this format. There are two things that I'm a little bit worried about. I think the biggest downside of this format that's pretty much guaranteed at this point is that it's very balmy. So you do want to draft removal spells super, super highly and just interaction in general. And that's always kind of a bummer in a limited format where like you've got a really good back and forth going for a super long time, and then there's just several rares and mythics in the set that can completely just invalidate every decision that was made earlier in the game, and it just all becomes, oh, I guess I drew my 6th loyalty planeswalker for 6 mana or something. There are, again, 5 rare planeswalkers and 5 mythic planeswalkers, most of which are pretty explosive, like Kaya, the Wandering Emperor, and all the mythic planeswalkers like Vraska, Jace. I've been milled 18 with an 18-card library just because they top-decked Jace and had a Proliferate card when it was a game that I was like starting to stabilize in. That feels horrible, obviously. And then there's also all of the non-planeswalker bombs, of course. There's just plenty of really, really good rares and mythics in the set in general. And not only that, not only do we have to deal with a lot more planeswalkers than normal, and more just general bombs, they brought back all the mythic rare Phyrexian Praetors, which is super cool flavorfully, but very worrisome bomb-wise. It is a pretty big bummer losing to a bomb that isn't even from this format, losing games to Shieldreds or Vorinclexes or Urabrasks. As we saw in my green-red seal deck, I won a ton of games just because I had ridiculously hard to deal with bombs, like Urabrask and my 3-mana 4/4 trample thingy-mabob. So I've benefited and lost to bombs. It's definitely a huge aspect of the format. That is the biggest bummer for me, the biggest thing that I'm worried about. Hopefully it doesn't affect my enjoyment of the format too much, because outside of that, the only thing that I'm really worried about is I do think that the green creatures are just really, really good on curve. I feel like green's probably going to be the best color just by far, because it just plays all these solid creatures, several of which just like draw a card when they hit the board as well, like the 3-mana 3/3 and the 5-mana 3/4 that gains life draws a card. So I think green is really, really good, and the green creatures are the scariest thing I've ran up against so far in terms of just general power level. But we'll see how the format progresses with that. That I'm much less certain of. I'm certain this is a bomb-heavy format. Outside of that, I think the format's really cool. I think the archetypes are super fun. Drafting is super fun because you've got to focus on these really synergistic cards. You know, picks like taking the 2-mana Toxic 1/1 in this deck over several other cards that I think would be like better value for most general decks, like the 4-mana vehicle that draws a card when it hits the board and stuff like that. So being able to like focus very far on very synergy-driven decks is super fun, and they do play quite a bit differently as well. The super aggro Toxic deck, the blue-red spells decks that I've been playing in those Grixis drafts. Those play completely differently and play pretty combo-y, where you play some non-creature spells with some oil counter stuffs on board, and all of a sudden the game starts just flipping in your favor drastically. That's super fun and a super explosive deck. And of course, green-red monsters. I did get to play that one time in Sealed. That is the most simple of the game plans that we've played around with, but it plays very differently from black-white and blue-red. You just play dudes and attack, and your dudes are way bigger than all of whatever nonsense they're trying to pull off. So, very cool. I like all the different archetypes. I like the way that the gameplay generally plays. Little bit worried about the color balance with green being super good, but we're not certain on that. It's very early in the format to tell. The biggest downside of the format, if you don't like bomb-heavy formats, you might not have a great time with Phyrexia All Will Be One. But the gameplay's super fun, the synergy's really cool. I highly recommend drafting it or playing Sealed of it at least a few times, experiencing it for yourself, and deciding from there how much you want to delve into the format. But that's the end of the early access event. That is the end of my kind of wrapping it up spiel. So we're just going to move on to the outro of today's video. If you want to see some more videos like this, as always, you can like, comment, and subscribe to let the YouTube algorithm know to send you some more videos in your recommended feed. You can support the channel directly via the Patreon link in the description below, like these lovely patrons did as well. And if you want to catch me live, you can check out the Twitch channel in the link in the description below. Other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.